Okay, guys, welcome to the Locked On monthly webinar. This first part of our webinar today, we're going to be looking at the buyers part of Locked On and setting up your automation. Now, when we start working with buyers, we generally have them getting captured from our portals. That's mainly the first point of entry. So we're going to look at that as if an inquiry's come in from realestate.com or domain. I'll also show you how to manually add a client or a buyer into the system. But if we're looking at buyers over here on the left-hand side, we have the inquiries database. So in the inquiries database, this is where we will see the inquiries from realestate.com, domain.com, your website, if that's connected, all being captured into the system. And we've got to think of this as like a holding tank. So there is certain rules you can have in your business, whereas in all buyers go into the inquiries database, where we then process them and we decide if we want to work with them by using the process option. Or if you're in an office where you say, look, every inquiry we get, we just want them to go straight into clients. If you're an admin user, we built this new feature probably about a month ago, where you'll be able to click your name at the top, go into office settings. In the settings area, in the inquiry section, turn on create clients automatically. So what that button will do is that every inquiry that comes into the system will automatically process into a client, which I'm going to show you. So it stops that qualification section. Now, some people like to have nice, clean buyer databases. Someone are like, anyone who's ever inquired, I want them to be in my database. Completely your choice, but you have that option. Today's purpose, we're showing you how an inquiry gets captured into the system and then we process it. Now, this has come from domain. And the first part I want to talk to you about automation is your inquiry response. So inside Locked On, let's just get a brief intro into our automation. Inside the engine, you'll have a section called triggers, and triggers is our automation. If you haven't got your triggers set up, inside engine in the packs is where you can install all our preset, basically templates, plans, and systems that come with Locked On. Now, you'll have the triggers option here and you can hit install. All accounts really, when we set you up, will have the Aaron Shiner pack that we'll go through later today, which is all his emails, templates, and plans. And you'll also have the welcome pack, which gives you all the default templates, emails, etc. So if you haven't got your triggers set up, this is where you'll actually get this all installed now. Okay, so now that you've got the triggers installed, if you go into engine, you see the triggers area and we can hit view all. At the moment, I think we've got about, well, how many? We've got 8 or 9 standard triggers. When we started off, we only had 2. So we're adding more and more slowly to the system. But as we add more, it's adding more and more automation for you. Okay, so these are things that will happen automatically. You turn on once, you never have to worry about them again. And this just keeps happening in your business. So if we're now looking at this, the first one we will look at is the inquiry response. Now, this one, if we hit edit, all of your triggers, when you get them, will be inactive. To turn it on, you hit active, and then it's doing certain rules inside of the trigger. Now, there's not much you really need to touch with our default triggers, to be honest with you. They're set up, ready to go, that you just need to hit the active option. So the inquiry trigger is basically saying, whenever I get an inquiry, automatically send this email and this SMS off to them. If we look at the inquiry from Luke, we go into my Gmail, we'll be able to see that we've had the inquiry here. And this is basically an automated template that's been sent to the person saying, thank you for your inquiry. We have this great opportunity for you to purchase a property with some custom text about the property. Then it goes into the photos, marketing, pricing, view online, watch the video, and the agent's details. Now, if you have SMS set up and the inquiry gives you their mobile number, it will also send them an SMS saying, thank you for inquiry. Please save my number. I'll be in contact with you shortly. So it's a really good first point of contact to have with any buyer that comes into your office. Is straight away instant email with all the information on the property. You can put attachments, documents to downloading that, but they also get a nice SMS if they've got an SMS number from you and you have your SMS set up. Now, if you have your inquiries coming into the system and you don't have automation on, which is to process them, you need to hit the process option. And we can see that we're creating a new client. Or if you're in an office where you really qualify your buyers and you think, well, look, Luke didn't even pick up the phone, didn't give me a number, email looks fake, you can archive them. So archiving is kind of like deleting them, but it doesn't put them into the database, then delete them. It holds them in the inquiries area. So if we create a new client under the agent Luke, we can hit the process option. This is going to add this person into the database. Now, once we add a client, the first thing it will do is take you into the screen to start adding the buyer criteria. So it's opening up the buyer criteria page, and then we'll be able to start processing what information they're looking at. So these are going to be things like price, beds, bath, car, what suburbs they're looking at, etc. Just see if that's going to refresh. Okay, information by criteria, and it should open you up to this screen here. So what we're looking at now is we can start to capture what it is Luke's looking for: beds, bath, car, suburbs, price. Now I pause here because I want to show you one thing. I've put Luke into the system, and if I look at Luke, I have myself in the database twice. So this is going to show you a really cool merge and clean up your database tool. If we go into the record, that is the second one. And I think, look, I'm sure I've met this Luke guy before. He gave me an email, which is a bit different last time, Luke at LockedOn instead of Luke at LockedOn HQ. We can open up the record and you have the ability to go actions, merge client. Now we're going to merge the client into the Luke and Natalie Newton record because we know it's the same person. He didn't give us a mobile number in the inquiry, but I've put 2 and 2 together. And when I merge the client, it will actually transfer all of the data, his inquiry, over to this record. I can see it's put him as a third contact on the card. And the reason it does this is so I can look at the person and go, well, is there any extra information I need to copy from this last person to the top one? Now, looking at that, their emails are pretty much the same, so I don't really need to update it. Now that I've merged it, I can hit the remove contact, which will clear Luke off this contact card, and I can assign all of his any data or anything that was related to him to the actual real Luke Newton. So it's merged all of the client information, it's put the contact data at the top, and we now have a nice clean record. So when I go into Luke and I search, I only have one in my database, and we can see that the inquiry that Luke made in our testers today, which is my domain on 8 Skinners, is now linked to this Luke record. So I like showing that because that's a nice way for you to learn how to merge duplicates. And everyone gets duplicates, whether they give you different names or different emails. It's a great tool to keep your database nice and clean. Now, let's go back to this buyer part. So when we add a buyer into the system, we go into the buyer criteria, and mine's got 2. I'll just delete one there. So looking at this buyer criteria, we can start to capture what it is they're looking for. Speaking to Luke, he needs 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, 1 garage. He's looking for a house, apartment, or a unit. Okay, now in your suburbs, you can select the suburbs you work. This matches your listing suburb. So Dolls Point, I'll put in there. That's the main area of my test database. And the price is the most important. So what do they have to spend? Let's put 2 million. And then we can hit the update information. So capturing a buyer criteria now allows you to say, well, what properties does this buyer match? And on the flip side of that, which I'm going to show you shortly, it's when we get a new listing, what buyers match that listing? Now, if you don't capture buyer criteria, that's okay. Your buyer will match every property you have, and more than likely, they're going to get your weekly newsletter that I'll show you how to set up. And if they like a property, they're going to reach out and want to inspect that. So if we go into this particular person now, when you're looking at the criteria, you see the click here to view any matching properties. If we click that option, we can see that it takes us into the properties tab, into the listing matches. I have 5 properties that match. So I inquired on the property 8 Skinners, but there's 4 other ones. As I'm speaking to my buyer on the phone, we can quickly send them an email of all these properties. So Luke, look, I know you inquired on 8 Skinners, but I've got 4 other properties that suit your price point, your beds, bath, and car. I'm going to flick them over to you now so we can hit send email to communicate with that record we're on. We can use the template that comes with your Locked On called buyer match. And then this will put in a subject, your matching properties, a nice little personal message, and it will drop in a list of all the properties that match. Now we can use the send option. Obviously it's got my logos and branding. It'll have your logos, your colors, your branding, and we can hit the send option and that will send that off. Okay, we'll also see that appear in my inbox. When that comes in, I'll show you what that is. But you can also see any email history or SMS you've sent a client here. So we'll be able to see when that's pending, it's sent, or if they've opened it, you have a history of every SMS you've also sent them. And you can say draft emails and resume those later on. Okay, so there's my buyer match email. It's been sent and it was sent to both contacts. So it's got Luke and Natalie. Natalie's got her own email. Luke's got her own email. they've both got one each, and we'll be able to see when they've opened that. So that's in the history tab. It's good to know that you've got that option there. Okay, so back into the information in the buyer criteria. When you've finished speaking with a buyer and you've captured their criteria, it's going to put them into the system. So now we can start sending off alerts to them. Now, this is where we start to look at the second trigger that I want to show you today. And that second trigger in the engine is in the triggers area, is called the newsletter. Now, with this one, if you want to activate it, I don't have this activated, but if we hit the edit option, you turn this active, and you do need to pick this one. All you'll need to do is pick what date and time you want your newsletter to send. So if I was to say, look, I want to start this next Wednesday at 10 a.m. and I'm going to repeat it every 1 week forever. That basically means your newsletter will send to your database every Wednesday, 10 a.m. forever. And if you look at this, we can see in the next option, it's using the newsletter email template, and it's going to all buyers. Let's pretend it's next Wednesday at 10 a.m. This is what the system will do for you. It will find all of your buyers, which we can see on the main screen. I have 26. It will then go send, email, and it will use our standard default template that we've set up for you called Trig Newsletter, so Trigger Newsletter, and it will load in a nice little brief text at the top. It will show, what you can't see here is it will show any of your open homes that you have for the weekend in open home order at the top. It then shows all of your properties you have for sale. You can make it show your sold properties and your rentals. So this is our default template. Please do not think that you cannot change this. You know, people change, put new articles at the top, banners, reorder the properties. You can edit all the email templates by going into Engine, Templates. You can hit View, and in the email, if you wanted to change the newsletter and the way it looks, you can go into the Trig, find the newsletter one, and hit Edit. And this is where you can change what components are in the email. We don't have time in this webinar to go into a full email building session, but you can book those sessions with your LockedOn specialist to have a half an hour session with them to show you how you use and customize and build emails. That's a really powerful session that you may want to look at doing if you're really into email marketing. But a lot of the stuff that we're showing you today is all set up, ready to go. So with that newsletter trigger, basically what you can say is either send this to my whole database or send this to my buyers. But on a weekly basis, any buyer in my account is getting a list of my open homes, is getting all my properties for sale, is getting any sales I've got and any available rentals. And that's every Wednesday at 10 a.m. That's really, really good buyer follow-up, something you never have to think of that will just keep sending. Now, if we go back into my record, Luke Newton, and we open that up, we can see in the activity that we inquired on 8 Skinners. Now, I put that in a few times. I just want to remove these other ones. I was doing a bit of testing. Okay, so that's the one for 7th of October. So when we're looking at Luke and we have him in the system, we can then set up our third trigger around the buyer, which is the open home reminder automation. This one is really, really good and powerful. If we look in the engine, again, in the triggers, we can hit View, and you have the one called Open Home Alert. When you edit this trigger, you edit it and you pick a day you want your open home to go out, and it's going to find all the open homes within the next 3 days. So generally you would do this on a Thursday or Friday. So it finds the open homes on Friday, Saturday or Sunday, and sends an alert to the people that are interested in that property. I've got mine going on a Thursday, and it repeats every week forever. This is what the system will do once you've set it up. It will go into the properties, and I'll look for my property here, 8 Skinners. And I'll show a bit more about this when we get into the property side of it. But in the marketing opens area, I am going to set up an open for this Saturday at 9 a.m. So now that I've set the open up, on the Thursday when that trigger fires, it will find any property that's open on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it will go to the activity area. It will find any person who's inquired and has not inspected the property, and it will send them a reminder to come to the property. So if we hit send email, I'm showing you the steps manually, but this is what it's doing automatically. It's finding 2 buyers. It's going to go to the open home alert. It will load the property, and it will tell them when it's open. This property you were interested in will be open on the 10th at 9 to 9:20. Gives them the property photos, the brochures, and the agent's information, and that gets sent off to our client. So I can just turn this off, and we'll send this off to me, and we'll hit the send option. So that's another bit of great automation. If you're an agent, you've got 5 listings, or you're an office with 50 listings and you've set up the open homes and you've got that trigger on, it will automatically be sending off 5 emails about every property. It'll be sending off 50 emails if you have 50 opens, but it's finding the exact people who are interested in that property and giving them a reminder to come and view it. So that's a really good automation trigger to have on about the open home alert. You can see in the history of our buyer now that it's sent the upcoming open home alert, and then there's the subject. So when you're looking at your buyer, you can see exactly what they've been sent. Now, if we look in my inbox, there's the open home reminder. Again, this would be branded with your logos, your colors. The templates are already set, and that would be sending off to your buyers, letting them know about the property that's open. We go back into my inbox. There's my matching properties email that I got. That was when I first spoke to my agent, and they said, look, I've got other properties that match you, and they've sent that through as well. So with our client, Luke, when we start working with them, there's a few things that we should know just in regards to their general client record. If you're really good at databasing and you want to have a nice clean system, you should always be adding notes whenever you speak to someone. And that's all held in the summary area. If you go into actions and you go add note, this is where you add notes. So we'll put in training, and we can add a note, and it will put the date and time against it. So you can see that's being saved against our record. If we go into the information in the general tab, this is where we can see what agents are attached to the property. So we have our primary, which is the main agent that met the client, put them in first, and all the bulk marketing comes from, and they're in gold. And anyone else is in green. And this record just shows you that there's a whole lot of other agents in my office that are working with them. Now, only the admin will be able to remove other people, and only other agents can get access to this card if they meet that person. So I'm removing a few there. We've got the lead sources domain. We can update that, and we can see that Luke's the only agent on this record now. To add more, I can just select them and save that. Now we can see here some important notes. We've got Luke supports the Manly Seagulls. So that is a note that will show up when we're doing phone calls. But this is what's really important, is your client tags. Now, every office has their own way of tagging people. We don't say there's a right or wrong, but I'll give you some examples. You might say this person's in your hot list. I've got them in my VIP, family, and my buyer category hot. As you start adding people to tags, this is where it makes the system really user-friendly, is that you can go into your clients. You can say, I would like to find all of my VIP people. I've only got 10. You might have 100. But when you have a big list of people, you've got some great options and tools to be able to go send SMS, email, letter, bulk communicate with that list. Out of my VIP people, you can see how many people actually have a mobile. When this loads, it will show you all the people with a valid mobile that we can SMS to. I've got 8, and there they are. And I can turn people off if I don't want them to get it by using the recipients area. Also, when I have a list, we also have an amazing feature in LockedOn, which is called the hit list. And that allows you to save call lists or to use a quick list to connect and clean this list. So if we go actions, and I'll create a quick list, it gets these 10 people and it turns them into a telemarketing machine. So I go into the first person view summary. I've got all of Luke's notes on the screen. I've got all of his contact details. I can ring Luke Smith, speak to him, make some notes, and then go to the next person. I can ring Ian and Kylie, speak to them, go to the next person. Now, it may be something I do once a month is ring my 10 VIP people. I use a hit list for that. I turn the system into a telemarketing machine, and I get through a list of data really quickly. Either I'm cleaning that data or calling that data. Okay, so if we go into the clients and we want to search for my record again, I can use anything. I'll show you using a mobile number. That will then bring up my record. You can use email, address, names, and you'll get a match. If we're looking in the information area again in the contacts, this is where you can see we have Luke as a primary, Natalie as secondary. You may not use this a lot, but if Natalie wanted to be the primary and you needed to deal with her, you move it to the top, or you can drop and drag Luke there. If you need to add more people, they might be a son, daughter, you can add them by hitting the add contact below. Now, the next part of automation I want to show you is around birthdays. It's not something that's huge common practice in real estate, but it's a great little tool if you have it. If you hit the edit contact option and you get your client's birthday from their driver's license, when they purchase, when they rent, when they list with you, put it into the system. Because if you go into the engine into triggers, we have a nice little one called Happy Birthday. And by turning this on, what it will do every morning around 9:30, it scans your database for anyone with a birthday today. If it finds a client with a birthday, it's going to bring up that record. It will open up, go send SMS. If you have SMS set up, it's going to send the happy birthday SMS off to your client automatically. If you have their email, it's going to send them a nice looking email automatically without you doing anything from you, which is the happy birthday email. So yes, it's not for everyone, but it's a great little contact point to connect with your valuable clients that you have got their birthday every year. And something you never really have to think about. It just keeps firing. Okay, so we've put a bit around the information, your tagging, and why it's useful to create your tags. All the tags are customizable, inside the engine, and that's where only admin has access to these, because we don't want every user in every office creating their own tags, especially if you're a multi-user office. You want to have someone controlling what sort of tags you use. So in the customizations area, that's where you can put in your client tags. I only have 9, but to add, you can hit the add. To delete, you can delete, and you can edit and rename if you need to. So I will give you some examples when your account's loaded. If you don't like them, just delete them and put your own in. Every office is different. I've seen so many different types of tags being used. The one thing I would just say to everyone is don't try and have hundreds of tags. It gets so confusing. You really, if you had a nice, good, clean database, 20 would be huge. Okay. Keep it effective, small list that everyone understands what they are. Okay. Because as soon as you start getting heaps, it just becomes really confusing. You have double ups of things that mean the same. So we'll go back into my record. Okay, looking at Luke, we can now see that we've got him as a buyer. He's been getting a whole lot of information from us. He's also been getting our weekly open homes and open home reminders. And inside the activity, we can see that he's inspected a few properties. Now, this is from our last webinar in September. I'll just remove that. Let's pretend that I made the inquiry. I'm now turned up to the open because I got your open home reminder, and we're going to add an inspection. Now, for most of our accounts, when you set up with LockedOn, we will give you a Home Pass account, which is the Home Open app. So that allows you to be at the house, take the person's details, that will sync instantly into LockedOn. If you don't have that, you use pen and paper, you have to come back, add your client in and add the inspection. So if you haven't got the Home Pass open app yet and you want to use a Home Open app, make sure you contact our support team. We can set you up. For the people that are using it, what will instantly happen is I will turn up to the property and it will do all of this for you. Okay, you're not doing this, but you're going to put my name and details into your phone. It's then going to match me in the system. It's going to say that I inspected that property today, and we can put in here all the details and we will save that. Now, inside, that's going to send an SMS to our vendor. If you're manually putting in inspections, that can be something you set up. So that's going to notify my vendor of the inspection. I've got that setting turned on. But in the engine, in the triggers, we have the inspection trigger. Now, this is used if you are using Home Pass. You really wouldn't turn it on otherwise. But when someone turns up to your property and they inspect it, it will instantly, 15 minutes after, it's going to send them an SMS saying, thank you for coming to the property. Here are my details. Save it in your phone. Okay. 1 hour after the inspection, it's going to send them a nice looking email saying, thank you for coming to the property. Here is a brochure and all the details of the property you've inspected, and I'll be calling you in the coming days. So all of that happens instantly after every inspection. So you can see that's some really good follow-up. Now, we've talked about all of the buyer triggers here, but let's just say a buyer, let's just go through those again in a logical process. If I was a buyer in your office and I made an inquiry off REA or domain, I would get an instant email and SMS from the listing agent. So that's already pretty good first impressions of this office. Well, the only people that got back to me instantly. You then qualify me, process, and put me into the system. And basically, listening to my criteria, you send me a list of all the matching properties you've got. On the Wednesday at 10 a.m., I instantly get your newsletter, which is all of your open homes, all of your listings, and all of your sales you've made. On the Thursday or Friday, I get a reminder to come to the open home for the property I inquired on. I then turn up to the open home and I check in and I get an automatic SMS and email from you. So over that first week, like a buyer's experience with your office is through the roof, like nothing else they've ever experienced. And if that buyer keeps turning up to more opens and making more inquiries, and they're getting a whole lot more automation. But the biggest thing I think out of working buyers well is qualifying them, getting the data into the system, and then you have this regular newsletter going off to them. Okay, so keep the flow of what you're listing, what you're selling going off to them at least once a week, and that's nearly a non-negotiable in all real estate offices or businesses now. Is that content is a weekly sort of email out to everyone. Buyers will unsubscribe if they don't want to get it anymore, but most buyers are always in house hunting mode, or if they own a house in the area, don't mind seeing what's coming up or what you've sold. Okay, so make sure you kind of have that newsletter going. If you're not doing it with our automatic newsletters, you should be trying to do something once a week with your opens and listings out to them. So the final part around the buyers is I just want to show you the just listed steps here. If we go into the properties and we look at my 8 skinners, we haven't showed you how to put a property in yet. That will come in the next part. So looking at 8 skinners, whenever you put a listing in, we go into life cycle listing and we can see our price. Offers above 330, price I've got is 300,000. And once we have the price sorted, we can go to the buyer match section and we see a list of all the buyers that match this property based on price, beds, bath, and car. Again, my test database is going to be so much smaller than yours, but you can see I have 8 matching clients. You may have 800, 8,000. The one thing you need to really embed is that every property gets its own just listed. And because every property is going to be ready to launch at different stages, so we might get the photos for this today or it's ready to go up online, you generally want to try and get this off to your database. I would try and do it at least 12 to 24 hours before you publish it so that they get the experience to see these properties first, know that it's kind of like an exclusive launch to the database, and then publish it live. So when a property, you get all the photos and marketing and you haven't uploaded it yet, go to your buyer match. You'll be able to use the send email, pick the just listed template. Again, this comes standard in your account and it will load in your logo, branding, property information, photos, details, and listing agents. You'll then be able to send this off to your database, selecting whether it's coming from the listing agent or from the agent attached to the buyer. You have 2 different methods of sending. And you then need to confirm how many people it's going to, and you can hit send. Now, I actually want to send this. I'm just seeing if these are all my test people so I can annoy them, which they are, except for that guy. And we will send this one off. So it's actually going to 6, and I'm going to hit the send option. But I might just, in my template, in the subject, just put test in there so they know it's a test. And I'll hit the send option. Okay, so that's now sent off. Pretend it's going to 700 people. Now, the great thing around this just listed, and this is something I'm always so amazed that a very low percentage of agents will do this sort of process, is the just listed as soon as you get it to exclusively to your database within that window before it goes live. And the next part is then going into your email in the reports area of LockedOn and looking at the email statistics. So if we look at my reports, we can see here is the test just listed email that's been sent. Now this will start tracking clicks and links and opens, and I can see it's already been sent. Yeah, there's the test just listed. So you can see how quick it's sort of coming through to the buyers already in my account. And we can click, view online, which will open the link to the property, and we can watch video. And all of those things are clicked. Now they take a little bit to feed back into the system. So hopefully I can show you these, maybe not now, but a bit later. But this is one thing that I'm most shocked on, is that the just listed process for a property using your email statistics is like having a magic wand to knowing what buyers you should be speaking to. When we look at an email, it's gone off to 700 or 7,000 people, and you can go into the details of it and you can start to see, okay, who opened it, who clicked on it, who watched the video, who clicked on the link. What you can actually start to see here is I'm on the system, and it's registered those clicks and it's tracked it. So pretend I gave this 12 hours or 24 hours and I said to my PA, okay, the just listed email was sent yesterday at 5. Tomorrow morning, you're coming into the system. I want you to check the email reports. I want you to go and click and ring anyone who clicked on the link. That's giving me a list of those 10 people that may have clicked on it. Now, as the PA, I can then go actions, create a hit list. It will open up the hit list of all of the people that I can speak to, and I will start calling these people one by one, turning LockedOn into a telemarketing machine. But I'm speaking to the most qualified buyers around a new property from my database before I put it on REA. So these conversations are very high value. You're speaking to people that have had interest in the property and that have clicked on it. You obviously don't let them know the secret, but when you call Luke, you're like, Luke, you may have got our new listing, 8 Skinners Avenue. We haven't even put it online yet, but I thought it would match you. Did you get a chance to look at that? Oh yeah, we looked at it last night. We also saw the video. That's great. Okay, we'd love for you to be one of the first people through. We've got the open on the weekend, but I can get you through before then. When are you free? So having those type of conversations are really high dollar value. The buyers on your database feel important, but you may have a huge database, but you're speaking to the self-qualified ones that are opening your emails, clicking on the property, and are showing interest. So that just listed process, as I said before, I'm shocked at how many people don't use their CRM to advantage using the statistics. And that's why email stats were created. So you can get that insight into who's doing what with your email. So if you're not doing that, implement that process, send it 24 hours before you put it live. Before you upload it, call the buyers that have clicked on it and opened it, get their feedback, see what they're thinking. Do they want to see it? You'll be surprised at those conversations that you start having there. Okay, guys, I'm just going to pause there, and that's the end of the first part around working our buyers in LockedOn. And then we'll see if you've got any questions. You'll be able to send them through using the chat option that you have inside your Zoom meeting tools. So the second part of this webinar, we're focusing on the properties attached to your clients. And this is probably where all the money is made in real estate. Let's be honest. It's meeting people that have properties to sell. Everything else is just a side product of having listings. So you get a lot of buyer inquiries. You meet a lot of people looking to buy if you have the listings. And on the main screen of LockedOn, we try and make this pretty relevant on the top. It's your potential sellers. And the potential sellers is one of the most important numbers that you really need to track. The definition of a potential seller in our world is that you know them, they know you, they own a property in an area you can sell. So if I'm an agent and I've just started, I need to prospect, I need to door knock, I need to cold call, I need to do all these things to generate leads of people who have properties. As I start progressing and growing in my career, I'm getting more appraisals, I'm making more sales, I'm meeting more sellers, and that number's growing. So this is a really, really important number. It really tells you a good gauge of where you're at in your career. So I'm quite new. I've only got 23 potential sellers. So if we look at my 23 potential sellers, I think I had myself tagged as one. Yeah, Luke and Natalie, perfect. We can see inside the information area, we have this button here called potential seller. So that's quite an important button. It flags the person that they have a property to sell. When you turn that button on and you save it, generally what should happen immediately after that is inside the properties area, you see the vendor tab and it tells you what properties they own. Now, if this was another client that didn't have any properties, it would be empty. So the first thing you really should be doing is I've met a potential seller, which was Luke. I then add the property to him. Now we're going to add another one. You can see I've got one that he's sold, one that's appraised, one that's listed, and one he's got for rent with us. So it's a really good client. They may have more properties. Whenever you need to add a property to someone, you go actions, link property. Guys, this is really important. All the money and the dollar value of your account is really based on having the property attached to your client. So just to recap on that, everyone starts as a client first, whether they're a buyer or a seller, and everything is linked to that. You flag your potential sellers with that button, and then your main screen tells you how many you have. When I click on that option, I can search any of my potential sellers. If I go into any one of them in the properties area, it tells me what properties they own that I've appraised, that I've listed, or they're sold. So that's important. You always start with the client. So let's go back to my test record, Luke. And we're now going to say, well, they're a great client. I've got 4 of their properties, but they also have another one in Malua Street that they want to sell. So we go actions, link property. We can add a property to them. And we're going to say this is number 28, Malua Street, Dolls Point, and we get a match. If you don't get a match in Google, that's completely fine. Just use the fields below. It just makes it quicker to use that and get a match. It will pre-fill it. And in the property type, we can say that it's a house. We can then hit the add property option. So as we add the property, it's now created this record here against me for Luke. The first thing we need to do is start putting in property essentials. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath, 1 car. I'm not going to go through all the fields today around data entry. Okay, that's very easy to see what data you need to put where. But what's most important through today's session is that you understand the statuses or the life cycle of a property. When you first add a property, it puts it in as a potential. The next stage is to build a relationship to get to an appraisal. We then try and keep building and get to the point we list the property. It will then go exchanged or settled, exchanged or unconditional, depending on what state you're in. And then it will go to settled. Now, the other ones are just other options that you have, but they're the 5 main stages through the property life cycle. If you meet someone who's a potential, you know their name, you know the property they've got, and you try and enter as much information as you can about that property, from the land details, any additional features, which you generally get when you appraise it. And you can also upload any documents that you might have about the property. That's more used when you actually list the property. But this then leads us into starting to look at the DNA plans that come with LockedOn. Now, all of the DNA plans, the pre-written follow-ups, the letters, the emails, the SMSs, they come from Aaron Shiner, proven $1 million performing agent. They've all been rewritten, reworded to be generic to work across most states. But this is how you start using them. When you meet a new lead, you'll go to the actions, apply DNA, and this will be a list of all of your DNA plans. Now, they're in number order, so we're trying to make it as simple as we can. The first stage is a potential appraisal. You haven't appraised the property. You know that they own it, so you've got a new lead, and we hit the apply DNA option. This will then set a whole series of actions for the agent to follow up their client. We've got a task to create a send office intro pack. We have an email going off in a day. We have a phone call in 19 days. We have an SMS going off in a month, another email in a month, another SMS, a phone call, email. You get the point. So with our DNA plans, they're really designed to increase your points of contact with a new lead so that you become a household name with them over that first 12 months. Now, also inside this property, what you can see is that this SMS is already fired. So there's automation inside our DNA plans that allow you to say, well, look, if anything's an SMS or an email, I want it to automatically send. We don't get right into the DNA building today because all the DNA plans I need to show you are done. You can use them. If you want to become more of an advanced user and create your own plans or edit them, you can speak to our support team. But by all means, these are getting great results and will be enough to get you started. Inside your engine in the DNA plans area is where you'll see all our DNA plans. Now, this potential appraisal plan that I've just used, if I hit edit, this will show us all the steps inside that plan. Now, these can be changed, edited. If you feel confident, you can go in and do what you need there. But I want to show you this. If I edit anything that's purple or green, you have an option here to automate the template, and I've got it on. All of your templates, emails and SMSs inside DNA plans are off by default. We don't want you sending things you haven't read or you don't approve, but I've turned mine on for today's examples. So you can turn them on and hit save, and you'll then see that the DNA item has automated little option there. So inside all of my DNA plans, because I'm happy with the content, I know what's in them, we're actually automating every email and SMS. So if I'm building a relationship with someone, I don't have to think about it. It's just saying, hey, that email has been sent. That SMS has gone. They start replying back to my phone. And as an agent, I'm really focused on, I've got to make that call today. Now, also, all of our plans have this really good setting on them, whether it's a potential appraisal or a sale plan. When we're looking at the actual plan, we'll be able to go into the tasks. And at the end of every plan, appraisal, potential, and anniversaries, we have this reoccurring. It's that little infinity icon there. It basically means that you never lose contact with any lead you meet, any appraisal you do, any sale you make. I'm going to show you this in all 3 plans. But for this potential one, if I don't book an appraisal with you, every year on the day that I met you, it's going to tell me to call you. And that task lasts forever. So in a year's time, you actually didn't book an appraisal with me after I sent you all this great follow-up. I ring you and I say, look, hey, Luke, it's been a year since we first met. I know we were talking about your property in 28 Malua Street. Has things changed? Are you still looking at selling that? Oh, no, we're still holding on to it. Okay, that's great. Okay, if I speak to you in another year, perfect. So that conversation will happen every year until they decide to appraise or list directly with you. But over that time, you're doing a lot of stuff that we're going to show you, like just listed, newsletters that go out to your database. So just sold as well. So they get more communication than just that phone call. But this is just like a fail safe that they will always appear for you to speak to them. And that's on all of our standard plans. So you never have to worry about losing contact with someone. Now, that potential plan is set. You start seeing this appear. If I go to my main screen, it tells me what's on today. You can see that I have 3 tasks due. When I click on that, there is my one for 28 Malua Street, and I've got 2 other phone calls to make. Your task becomes the backbone of your success. I cannot stress this enough. It is another great indication of how far you are progressing with your business and your career. When you first start with Locked On, you're putting in potential sellers and you start using our plans. You'll be very lucky to, like, over the first 6 months, to generate maybe five calls a day or 5 actions a day would be a lot consistently. Over that first year or 18 months, we're trying to get you to a point where you've met enough potential sellers, you've done enough appraisals, you've hopefully made a few sales by that point, and you start having anniversary appraisal potential plans all coming into the task. And every day you're seeing, 15 to 20 connections to make. A really good KPI, just to keep in the back of your head, is that I want to be doing 25 connections to my database every day from my tasks. If you've been to any training or seminars or ARIC, you'll hear them saying, my system generates X amount of connections for me to do every day. You take an agent like, I've forgotten his name. Oh, Adrian Bowe was an example. Like, he was one of the top agents in McGrath. Every day his system would give him 30 connections. And that's just because he was databasing everyone, putting in anniversary calls, putting in appraisal follow-up calls. He would just come in and go, bang, these are the people I need to speak to today. That's where I want you to get to. Now, remember that these are your phone calls. And if you have automation on, well, it's automatically sending emails and SMSs for you as well. So there's a lot of contact points being made. That's one of the key indicators just to keep in the back of your mind. But every day you'll log into Locked On, or you'll use the Locked On phone app, and it will say you've got these many tasks or calls to do. You go into the task, you hit complete. It shows you the notes, the history, what you've also done with that client. You can read over those and you'll be able to speak to your client and then complete that call. Okay, so there's all the history there that you need to do. You then complete it, it'll mark it off, and it will have the next call ready for you. Now, if we go back into my 28 Malua Street, you can see the SMS has been sent. In the tasks, we can just manually complete these. We can say that we've completed that task, and then we can just say complete. And let's pretend that we've done a few of these options. There's my email due in a day. If you wanted to manually do it, it would open it up, show you the exact preview of what's being sent. You can make any changes to that and then send it. So these things are happening automatically, but we're building a relationship with our client, and they've called us up and they said, Luke, we now want to have an appraisal. Thanks for all the follow-up. It's been 6 months. So at this point in time, we update the status to appraised on the property. Okay. In the life cycle, we start the life cycle of the property. So we appraise it, list it, sell it. We set the appointment, and we can say the appointment's tomorrow at 9 a.m. for 1 hour. This books an appointment in your calendar, and we can update that and choose to put it into one of our calendars. Now, after the appraisal, we come in and we put their price. We can put our price, so we think it's worth $820 to $850. And then we can enter in our commission percentage we spoke about. Add any notes, and we can save that. So now that that is saved, we now need to set our follow-up. This is stage 2 in the follow-up. So in the task, my potential plan, and you can see what plans you have by using the funnel, is no longer relevant. So I select it, select all, and I delete those items. There's no point your automation sending off saying, hey, love to appraise your property, or you're still thinking of selling when you've been out and appraised it. So that's a crucial part. Always remove a plan before you set the next one. Now, because we've completed the appraisal tomorrow, I can go actions, apply DNA. As soon as I get back to the office tomorrow, I then hit the appraisal DNA plan. Again, what is this designed to do? Over the next 2 years, this is designed to increase your contact points so that this vendor hears from you on a regular basis. And if they're thinking of selling, that you've had really good contact with them. You've got a lot of emails, phone calls, SMSs going out over the first sort of 2 years. Now, at the end of that, you then have a reoccurring SMS that goes off to them. On year 2, it says, hey, Luke and Nat, it's been 2 years since your appraisal. We would love to give you a regular yearly update. Please reply to this SMS and we can book in an appointment. If they don't reply, next year it goes off, hey, Luke and Nat, it's been 3 years. Hey, Luke and Nat, it's been 4 years. That will keep going automatically every year on the date and time they had their appraisal. And it also puts in a phone call for you. So you can do the phone call and know that the automation's been sent. That's the repeating power of it. So as a principal, if you were using Locked On, you got 10 agents, you start to think, well, every appraisal they do is never going to be lost contact with. Whether that person comes or goes, there's always going to be an SMS going out to that person saying, hey, it's been 4, 5, 6 years since your appraisal. Are you thinking of selling? Would love to give you an update. So that's automatic things happening. And a lot of that plan has automation through it, SMSs, emails, letters, etc. So the appraisal plan's set, and we're building a relationship by completing our tasks every day with this person. Now, the next point is that they decide to list with you. Now, if they don't list with you, there's plans that you can set. I'll just show you. You go actions, apply DNA. They call you up and said, oh, look, we went with Ray White today. You can use the lost appraisal plan. Keeps you in contact with them for 90 days to hopefully you can relist it. But you follow the same steps then. If they said, we're no longer listing with you, you can find your appraisal plan. You make sure you remove it, because there's the second step is that you've lost the listing. You don't want to be sending them automatic stuff saying, hey, are you ready to list your property? Or it's been 2 years since we appraised it. So make sure you remove that, and then you set your lost listing plan. Now, the next step when you sign up a listing is that you've won the listing. We're going to go out and sign up the paperwork. So you book that appointment, you come back to the office with the agency agreement. Let's go into a property that I've already got set up, which we're using as 8 Skinners. So when you get a listing, you update the status to listed. And this one's already listed. At that point, you go into lifecycle listing and you set up the date, whether it's auction or private, the listing agents, the price, the rates, strata, etc. If you've got a tenant on it, you can add your vendor solicitor. There'll be a button there that says add. I'll just show you actually. So if you put your solicitors into the system, you click that button and you're then able to add in a solicitor from the sales advice page. We'll just select this one and we can save it. Generally, your purchaser and purchaser solicitor aren't added till you've sold it. I did this in my last demo, so they're still there. I can get rid of both of them. You can see that it's saying add purchaser or add solicitor there. So this option over on the right is all the parties linked to your property. Right now, when you list it, you should only have your vendor and the vendor solicitor. So the property is listed. We filled in all the listing information. In the marketing section, you're now creating your heading, your text, you're putting your images in, you're setting up your open times. And if you're using us as an uploader, you're going to portals, turn on the portals that you want it to go to. And when they're all active, you have it as current, you hit upload. That's how the uploader works. When you sell it, you mark it as sold. When you want it to come off the market, you mark it as off the market and hit upload. Very, very simple upload process. If you want to use us as your uploader, very simple to set up and very easy to use inside the system. So that's a listing set up, but let's go back to this. In the lifecycle listing, you've put the listing info in, you've got a new listing. In my task, this has got some, so I'll just remove it. You should have, if you had a plan there, you would remove it and you set the actions, apply DNA, and it's the new listing, waiting contracts, sorry. And this plan, doesn't matter what state you're in, you're either writing your own contracts or you're awaiting your contracts. Just think of it as the new listing plan. You hit apply and it gives you all the steps that are just generic things to getting a listing ready to go to market. You might have to advise the tenant that the property is listed. You might have to thank the vendor for listing with you. You've got to book the team inspection. You've got to give feedback on that. You've got to give them a rundown of what's going to happen over the coming weeks. You've got to speak to their solicitor. You've got to give them feedback. So there's all these items that should happen kind of within that first 7 to 14 days just to get them ready for their property to go live. Now, all of these items here would be completed. If you don't want to do them, you can just delete them. Like if they're not relevant to you, you might want to edit the DNA plan and remove them. But generally, all of these items are completed within the first 7 to 14 days. Now, I'm just going to clear it, pretend they're all done. When you then launch the property, which is by having all your marketing set up, going into the portals and uploading it, we then have a DNA plan. You set that day you launch it, which is the actions, apply DNA, and it's the listing gone live. Now you set that from a Monday. So if we launched it today, we might set it from next Monday or the Monday before. It's kind of up to you. If it was in the middle, you might go back to the Monday. If it was on the Friday, you definitely set it on the 12th and you apply that plan. And this is the kind of Aaron Shiner vendor management DNA plan. And it gives you a whole lot of nice emails, SMSs, phone contact points to speak with your vendor over the kind of 90 days that you have their property on the market. So that plan is now set and it gives you all the listing expiry reminders as well. That's our vendor management plan. A lot of agents have their own vendor management system. They just don't have it documented like we do in plans and steps and processes. If you were new, this plan would be bulletproof for you. If you're an existing agent with runs on the board and you say, I ring my vendors every day, that's perfectly fine. You might not use this, but there's some great content in there for you or your admin to make sure a listing goes live correctly. So I'm just going to remove that one, but that's what you set when the listing goes live. So at the point of the listing going live, you start to see you're getting inquiries. They're getting automatic replies. You're doing inspections. They're getting their open home reminders. They're getting their weekly emails being sent to them. You're tracking if someone requested a contract and if they make offers. And this is where we get into the vendor reporting. Most commonly, people do reporting every week. So to do your vendor reporting in LockedOn, week one would happen and you would go actions, add a vendor report, and you say, okay, well, we listed it on the 7th. Our first report goes from the 7th to the 14th, and we add in some feedback. Now, I won't fill in the data there, but you can see this one's done. So we're putting in activity summary, what's our inspection summary, and the report summary. And once you've saved that, you're then able to have 3 options to communicate your vendor report to them. You can download this. So this will download it as a PDF. It will see all of the statistics of the property. So you've got a nice cover page there. I'll just zoom out a little bit. Okay, it goes into some numbers. It's been on the market for 737 days. It's my test property. It's had 18 open homes, 4 inspections, 4 inquiries, 1 contract, 1 offer. You can see the breakdown of those. You've got your inquiries and their notes, their inspections and their notes, contracts, offers, campaign items, and then your summary. So it's a nice PDF report to either sit down with your vendor. The second option is that you can go into email this. So it creates a nice looking email with the photo of the property. It attaches the PDF to it. And it then allows you to make any changes you want to the text and then send that. And there's the report PDF attached, and hit send. So that's another nice way to get it to your vendor where they can just read it every week. Now, the really good one that we want you all to use is the vendor portal. So you can actually go to your vendor. If they're not set up yet, you'll have an option here that says create vendor login. It will then pop up a screen where it'll have their email, and you send them an email. And you can see this one says VP connected, which means vendor portal connected. The vendor will then have their own login to vendorportal.com.au. They will log into that portal. And when they log in, if you're listing, you have in the activity vendor reports activated vendor portal, they log in and they see this. Now, the beautiful thing for an agent is that whenever your vendor logs in, you get an alert email saying, hey, George Newton just logged into the portal and he's having a look at it now. So you know how many times a day they're logging in, when they're logging in. They see all the statistics on their property. They see the last vendor report notes, but they see every inquiry with the notes, every inspection, any contract, and any offers. They've got their marketing, all their photos for them to review. And they also have any documents you want them to see on the portal. So that might be your invoice or your marketing plan, the consigned contracts, agency agreement. You can also see on the right, it's got the agents, the portals they're on, next upcoming open time, and the ability to email the agent through the portal. So this looks really good on their tablets, their phones. They can log in anywhere, but you're getting alerts when they do it. The other great thing for that, and probably the most powerful thing, is that agents that are using it and using it well are using it as a listing presentation tool. So I go into my next listing opportunity. I say, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, you know, we sold the property 8 Skinners. This is why it was so successful and why the vendor is so happy. We have this exclusive vendor portal where we can keep you up to date 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can log in anytime you want, and you'll be able to contact us, see all the information and all the buyers that are interested in your property. So it's a really good thing to show during the presentation. Now, you're doing your vendor reports, you're communicating with your vendor extremely well, you finally work a buyer to get an offer, and in the life cycle area, in the sales advice, we need to put this together. So under contract is the day you got the offer accepted, it was sold by Andrew, exchanged or unconditional, whatever state you're in, maybe 5 days after, and then settlement might be 6 weeks. All those dates can change, that's fine. But you do need to put in your price, your commission rate, and any sale deadline dates that you have. And at this point, you would link your purchaser solicitor, and we can save that information. Oops, pick the wrong one. And you then can link your purchaser over here by selecting Dave, and we can link them to the property. So over on the right, oh, the purchaser one didn't save. Let's go into this one. There we go. So over on the right, we now see that all the parties are starting to fill up. We have a vendor, we have a vendor solicitor, we have a purchaser solicitor. You can click on their names to go to any of their records. So now that all the parties are filled and you've got the whole information of the sale put in, you can print a sales advice directly from this screen. So this will use our default sales advice letter. It's grabbing all the sales content, all the information of your purchaser, your vendor, solicitors, and it's going to merge it into 3 documents, one for the office, one for the purchaser solicitor, and one for the vendor solicitor. Takes a little bit to merge. It's doing a lot of work, but this is then going to open up in Microsoft Word and you have your sales documents done. Now, people have edited this. It's all Microsoft Word. We give you all the merge tags. If you want to add more letters to it, you can. But as a default, it's doing 3 standard letters. We'll see those come up soon. There we go. Download, save, and we will open that. So this is just a good example of letter merging because this is a quite complex one. It's a lot of fields and a lot of data going into it. So we've got the property, the sales information, purchaser, vendor. We have the same sales advice, a bit less information, and then the purchaser's copy. So 3 kind of large documents with a lot of fields all merged, pulling all the data from that screen. So the property has gone under contract. Now, if you're using LockedOn as an uploader, we call that under offer. You go into the listings section and you turn this property under offer on, and that will mark it as under offer in all your LockedOn emails and also on the portals. So to upload that, we go marketing, portals, and we upload it, and it will send it to the site as under offer. Now, we're waiting for the property to exchange. We're calling solicitors, we're keeping in contact with the vendor and purchasers, all the sales deadlines pass, and they tell us it's gone unconditional or exchanged, and we update that then and there. Now, in the tasks area, this is where we would check and we can see if I had a vendor communication plan on this, I would remove it. There's no need for me to do my weekly update to communicate with my vendor. I've now sold the property and we're going to do the exchange process. To do this, we go into the actions and we use the apply DNA. And this is the part because we now have more than one party linked to the property. So we have a vendor and a purchaser. We set one for the vendor and one for the purchaser. I'm going to do the vendor one now. And this is all of our congratulations of sales, communicating with the vendor solicitor and the vendor throughout that settlement, the exchange to settlement process. It's putting the property as sold online, putting the sold sticker up, doing all our just sold calls, our just sold SMSs. All of this is in this plan for our vendor, for the listing agent. So the assigned agent here for the listing agent, it's gone to Dave. I think this was for sold solicitor. We're looking at the life cycle listing. It's got my vendor manager there, Dave. So I'm in a team and Dave's my vendor manager. So he's doing all the admin stuff. And you can see the assigned agent is doing the important stuff, which is Luke, the listing agent. So that's the listing side. If I go into the sale DNA, so I set one for my purchaser, I'm going to use the exchanged purchaser option. And this will be all of the items for our selling agent. He obviously sold the property. He needs to speak to his purchaser. He needs to keep in contact with his clients and their solicitor. And that's assigned to Andrew Chin, who is the selling agent. That will automate SMSs out on his behalf to his purchaser and solicitors. So there's some really good content in there in those 2 plans. Look, a lot of offices have your own exchange to settlement process, but if it's really good if you have it in a system, because what it does is it starts showing up in the tasks for your listing and selling agents that, hey, you've got to make this call. You've got to do this just sold. You've got to do that. And everything's being tracked and completed against the property. That's the beautiful thing about DNA plans. Everything's tracked, recorded, and logged against the property. And it really just eliminates anything being missed because it's in there as an item to do. So at this point, what we're basically doing is if we're looking at our properties, we can see my listings. And if I clear that filter, I'm able to see what properties I have pending sale. So I've got my property here, 8 Skinners. It's under offer, it's exchanged. I've got 10 Skinners as well. And that's under offer and exchange. So we're using our 8 Skinners one. We've following up using all of the tools in our tasks. And the client now, as the solicitors called us and said the property's settled. Now at this point, if we go into the property, we update it to the settled. And this is the final part and probably the easiest part. When the property goes settled, we can then set the anniversary plans and transfer the property. Transferring the property means let's move it from the vendor to the purchaser. And when you click the transfer property, it gives you a really nice workflow to do this. So these are our seller questions. Do we want to remove all uncompleted items in the DNA set against the property? Yes, we do. Do we want to assign a new DNA plan for our vendor? Now, if you're using our DNA plans, you use the 6.1 settled vendor. Doesn't matter whether your vendor is moving in or out of the area. It's a regular phone call every year to check in with them and see how they're going. That's if you like your vendor. Some people don't want to follow them up anymore. Now, you should update your vendor's postal address if they've sold the property that they were living in. So that's where you would do this now, and updates their postal address, and you can add them into any tags you want. Now, in my business, if someone sells or buys with me, I put them straight into the VIP category. That tells me you're a buyer or seller. You're in my important list. I might send you a Christmas gift every year, whatever it is. My purchaser questions: do we want to create the property assigned to the purchaser? Yes, you do. Do you want to assign a DNA plan for them, which is going to be a live-in purchaser or an investor purchaser? Okay, we'll do a live-in. Do we want to put any tags in them? I'll just pretend that they're not in the VIP already. I left them on from last webinar, sorry. So put them into the VIP. Will they remain an active buyer? No, they won't. And do we want to update their postal address to be the purchase property? Yes, they're moving into it. So we hit the transfer option, and it now starts doing all of these things to move the property from George to Dave. So let's let it run through those processes and green ticks as it's going. Okay, DNA plan assigned for George, DNA plan assigned for Dave. Congratulations, you've now finished. Let's go to the new property. Now, the new property is assigned to Dave. It's assigned to the agent who sold it to him, Andrew. It's a potential. If we look in the task, we now have an anniversary plan for a living purchaser that has around 3 to 4 years of really good, solid communication. And then on the fourth year, it goes into your generic anniversary SMS and email to them. So every year on year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, until they die or you stop using LockedOn, they will get an SMS from you that says, it's been 4 years since you purchased the home. We hope you're having a great time. If you ever need anything from us, please feel free to give us a call. And a nice email goes to them as well. So our anniversary plans are bulletproof. Every year on the date they purchase, they will get an SMS or an email from the agent who sold them the property. Whether they remember to do it or not, it's automatic if you've turned that feature on. That's a really good feeling of that going out without you having to do it. Okay, so you can see that power in that process and the whole transfer. Now, if I go into my database and we clear this filter, oops, let it fly, and I go into a Skinner's, what we start to see is that this is the settled one that was attached to George Newton. This is like a settled sales folder. If I go into this property, it has all the buyers, all the notes, all the inspections, all the offers, everything that had to do with that sale. A settled property is like a historical record. This is the new one, however, that is a potential. This is the one that Andrew's going to try and build a relationship with, and hopefully in 7 years when they decide to sell, we'll sell that property for him. That's the process of the DNA plan and the system in LockedOn. If you understand the 5 main stages, that we've got potential, this is the new purchaser that hopefully one day will appraise it, hopefully one day we'll list it, we'll get it to a point of exchange, we'll then go to settled, and the new purchaser will move in and we'll set an anniversary plan for them, and we'll go through those 5 stages again. If you understand that at every stage there is a series of plans, items to help you build a relationship, to have a great customer experience with them, to increase your tasks and your contacts points with them, then the aim of the game is really simple. Meet more people, set more DNA plans, do more tasks, you have more connections. It's just a relationship industry. The more connections, the more people you have, the more people that think you're a great service, talk to more people about you. This is how it all happens from that particular point there. So this last part of the session is the just sold. I'm going to show you some things that I just think need to be ingrained into your business, non-negotiable after you sell a property. And if you're using a database, what I said right at the start of today, this is your highest conversion, easiest calls you can do in real estate. Again, my database is small, yours is going to be bigger, but here's the just sold process. I sold that property in 8 Skinners. Okay, we've been using that throughout our demo today. If I go into my properties database as an agent, the very first thing I would do is, if the property was sold, is I would think, okay, well, what properties have I sold or appraised in Skinners that I need to communicate with about this result? Just sold calls are by far the highest conversion things you can do and easiest calls to make. So I use my advanced find. I go property details, and in the street name, Skinners won't have many in it, but I'll use Malua. So I sold a property in Malua Street. In the statuses I want to search for is my potentials and any appraised or anyone who's come off the market. And I hit apply. Now, in that street, I've got 4 people that I've appraised or that I've sold to. Using my hit list functions, the first thing I need to do is make my calls to this street. So I go actions, create hit list or quick list. They're pretty much both the same. I'm going to use a quick one for today. And if I go into the first record view summary, for Malua Street, I can see is owned by Luke and Natalie. I've got all the notes. I'll have a quick read of them. I'll go into their information or life cycle, and I'll look at the appraisal. I did that back in January 2019. was 200,000. I pick up the phone and I ring my client, Luke and Nat, we just sold the property number 28 Malua Street. It actually went for 800,000. We appraised yours for 200 back in 25th of January 2019. Theirs obviously is a bit bigger than yours, but look, prices have really gone up. We've got a lot of people left over. I think that some of them would be interested in your home. Have you had any further thoughts about moving? So we've got some really good dialogue, really good price points, letting them know there's a lot of interest in the area. The next person, we're doing the same thing, reading the notes. We're looking at the life cycle. We can see we appraised this year, 9th of January, 620. Okay. The other one we just sold was for 800. So we're educating this person about the property they own that another one down the road sold. The next call until we finish that list. That's first 4 calls. Now, ideally, when you're doing just sold calls, we want you to have at least 20, 25 connections. So in my properties database, I might go, okay, well, I called Malua Street. What's the street next to it? Oh, that might be Skinner's. So, okay, once that one's finished, let's go into Skinner's and let's find all of my potentials, appraisals, and my taken off the markets in that street. And you can see I've got the one that I've just sold, which we did today in our example. But hopefully you understand that process there is that every sale you make, as soon as you get the call, the property is exchanged, or you may want to do it on settled, you hit your database and you let them know the result that you've had. There is no person in the world that doesn't want to know what a property down the road sold for if they've got an investment or they own a property in that street. It's obviously most people's biggest assets. If it's not their biggest asset, they still want to know if it's going up or down. But these are the easy conversations to have. Now, when you're doing these phone calls, the reason we're doing them so early during the sold campaign is this information is becoming readily available online through portals now, through RP data, that most people go looking for it themselves. But you want to be known as the agent that, hey, Luke gave me a call and let me know that sale price. And then how often does real estate come up in conversation, in talks, in dinners? People are going to let other people know about that sale price. Oh, yeah, I know what that sold for. My agent called me. This is where you need to be known as that agent. Let them know weeks before they're going to find out this online or from a letterbox drop. These are your valuable clients. So that's the first part of the just sold is do your phone calls to the street and surrounding streets. At a bare minimum, be trying to make 20, 25 connections around that. You may do more. If you've got more on a street, then do more. It's the best conversations you'll have. The second part of this is you do your bulk campaign and you do this to your sellers. So if I'm looking at my suburb and I've got a small area, and this will be relative to your area, I'm going to use the suburb Dolls Point, maybe OINT, and I will select all my potentials, all my appraisals, and all of my taken off markets, and I'll apply that filter. I have 5 properties in Dolls Point. I'm going to use Aaron Shiner here, one of our directors, as an example. He was very, very effective in Mount Druitt. That's what he was known for. That was his area. When he sold a property in Mount Druitt, this was one of the things he always did, which got massive momentum in his business. He would find anyone in the Mount Druitt area, and when we're talking big size databases, he would come up with around 800 to 900 potential sellers. So that's a really good percentage of the area database in his system he's appraised or sold to. And he would use the options to go send, SMS, email, or letter. And he would mix it up every time. But if I was to look at this and say, okay, well, I want to send an SMS to my 500 people in Dolls Point, letting them know I've just sold, I use the just sold template. I pick the property I just sold, which was 8 Skinners, and we select the property and we see the SMS. So, hi, Luke, great result. We just sold 8 Skinners around the corner from the property you own for. Call me for more details. Bang, send. 500 SMS has gone off. Your phone goes absolutely berserk for the next day or two. Okay, the replies you get to this, if they're good, warm clients, you're going to be like, that's awesome. How many people left over? What's the market like? We're thinking of selling. You will get leads from that. And all depends on your volume. But SMS is brilliant for this sort of just sold stuff, especially if it's a great sale, like a record price or a property that everyone's kind of watching. You also can go send email, and you can send an email off to all your vendors. Now, I've only got 2 vendors there. You might have a template in here. I think I've got one for sold, just sold. Okay, it's going to ask me for the property we just sold, which was 8 Skinners. And we then select that, and you can see a preview of this. Okay, we have successfully sold the property for. If you'd like to know more about this, please contact me and send. Okay, I don't really like doing emails to your vendors we just sold. The open rates aren't great enough. If you're going to do anything, always do phone calls first, then use SMS. If you're not using SMS in your business, oh my God, it will change your world. There's 6 cents a message. You're going to get instant responses, especially with just sold. You have to be using it. Set it up. Do your just solds with SMS if you can. Stop your SMS every now and then and do an email. But the statistics on it are just through the roof. And the final thing you can do is a letter. So you might put in a nice Word template into the system with a photo of the property, the price, your photo on it, and you merge a letter to all of your sellers in that area. Yes, that costs, look, let's call it $1.50 now. It costs a lot, okay? But here's what you've got to think is that most agents are doing just sold through email only. They're not even hitting the phones. If you do SMS and a letter every now and then, letters are great because they get open. Some vendors even keep them for historical research, but they're getting taken inside open. They're seeing your face, they're seeing your branding, they're seeing the property, the sold price. So letters are a really, really good breakthrough. They just cost a lot more than SMS. But I would say SMS primarily number one. Letters, when you've done too many SMSs, do a letter. And if you have to, do an email. Depends really how much you're transacting. If you're doing a lot of sales, you might mix it up between the two. But if you're not doing a lot, SMS all the time, mix it up with a letter, sometimes do an email. Now, hopefully that makes sense, but here's why this works so well. Everyone on this list I'm showing you is either bought off you, knows you through getting a lead. You may have appraised them or they've come off the market. These are your warm to hot sellers. This doesn't stop your cold prospecting or your letterbox dropping the streets or area. But when you get to a point like Aaron Shiner and you have 600, 700, 800 people in your core area and you start doing a letter, an SMS or an email, the replies that you start getting are going to blow your mind. Okay. This is when in Aaron's training, he would say it becomes fun. Okay. It becomes fun because I'm doing so much bulk marketing around results that just leads to more results. Okay. Every single person in that area thinks I'm the only agent selling property because I'm the only one communicating my sales to them in an effective way. You have to get this just sold process down packed into your business. I don't care whether you've got 10 people in a street or you've only got 10 potential sellers. If you sold a property, you would ring all your 10 potential sellers and speak to them. It all becomes volume. At what point you cannot do all your phone calls that you might want to do an SMS. You might want to do an email or letter. If you have a small database, ring everyone about every sale. Start ringing people then. If it gets bigger, only around the certain streets and do your SMSs to the whole area. You'll know what to do based on your time and how busy you are. But that is another way to know your progression through your career is once you start saying, I can't connect and call with people, you might need an assistant or a PA. But there's some really good indicators of when that is needed in your business. Just wanted to say thank you for attending the monthly webinar. As mentioned, it's on the first Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. New South Wales time. On the front of your screen, you can register for the next one whenever you want to, or if you have new staff by hitting the register option. And the webinar that we've done today has all been recorded and it will be on the watch previous option at the top of the playlist. That will be put up this Friday. I hope you all have a great day. It's been a pleasure having you on here and I look forward to chatting with you all soon. If you need any assistance, just go to support@lockedon.com or use the chat option inside your account and our team will be able to help you out. Have a great day, guys, and we'll speak soon. All the best.